Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Pearlie Brewer, and I will be your host. New Brunswickers are the heart and soul of safety in our province. Individuals and organizations lead the way to safe and healthy workplaces. They help develop a culture where everyone participates, encourages, and supports one another in health and safety. To recognize these outstanding New Brunswick leaders, WorkSafeNB presents Safety Star Awards annually at their Health and Safety Conference. Recipients are honored for their initiative, hard work, and profound effect on health and safety, among other health and safety champions. This year, WorkSafeNB honored two such organizations, the Predictum Playhouse and Clow Canada. We are honored to have with us for today's podcast Benoit, representing Clow Canada. Welcome, Rick.
Well, thanks for having me.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Clow Canada on your award, well deserved. At the conference, they shared a video on your health and safety culture at Clow Canada. Now, obviously, folks that were not at the conference didn't have a chance to see that video. So let's get them an opportunity to find out a little bit about your organization. For someone that doesn't know really much about Clow Canada, where are you located? What do you do? How many employees do you have? Why don't you give folks an overview of Clow Canada?
Well, Clow Canada, is our main manufacturing facility is in St. John, New Brunswick. Established in 1834, we are the oldest company in the St. John area, formerly the McAvitie Company. So people that are familiar with the McAvitie name, that was the name we used up until 1990. When we were purchased by the McWane family and changed the name to Clow Canada. But having said that, we still use the McAvitie trade name because it's so well known. And we manufacture fire hydrants and valves and underground water appurtenances for the Canadian market. So we have about 100 people at that plant. And then we have, and that's the plant that won the award. And then we have a few other plants in Quebec, Ontario, and Western Canada. So we have over 600 employees total across Canada.
So how would you describe your safety culture at Clow Canada in St. John, especially?
Well, we have we have a safety culture that is a culture of ownership. So about 5, 6, 7, I guess probably 6 years ago, we as a group of companies, we were looking at our safety ratings and TRIR and things like that, and we had invested so many millions of dollars on compliance, engineering, training, and we were very happy with those results, but we seemed to plateau. So then we thought, okay, what's the next step? And we took the approach that compliance should be the minimum. So we should not, that should be just the standard as opposed to, what we, kind of the floor as opposed to the ceiling. And then from there, how do we reduce our injury rates? Well, from there we said, okay, let's embark on a mission to, through training and things like that to try and get our employees to act as owners. So we go from a culture of compliance to ownership, and ownership being they act and behave like an owner of the company. But even more important, they look after themselves and other coworkers. And we embarked on about a 5-year journey that get us to where we're at now.
Now, when you look at these statistics, as far as lost time accidents and so on, have you seen a change there in the last 2-3 years?
Absolutely. We've increased our near miss reporting, obviously, which is important component to that. And our actual recordable injuries in the last 5 years, I think we've had 2 in 5 years. So we've drastically reduced that. But with that also probably comes, so many other benefits, and that is increased buy-in regards to product development and efficiencies, and not only lost time from accidents, but people missing time from work altogether. So we've seen a huge benefits, and of course with the idea that we want our people safe, but there is other benefits that come from a purposeful transformation like we've gone through.
Now, a lot of organizations are struggling with turnover. I would think as folks feel more of an ownership feeling, turnover would go down as well.
Yes, sir. We've seen a huge decrease in turnover. Having said that, through the process, the last, especially the first 2 years, our turnover actually increased because what we've found was that we became much more courageous leaders and, held our people accountable, perhaps in a way we didn't in the past. And two things happened through that. One is some people self-selected to leave the company because they didn't want to work under those, the new way of doing business. And number two, some people we just said, okay, you're a square peg in a round hole, and we really don't see the benefit of having you here. But now that we've gotten to where we're at, our turnover is almost zero.
Very good. Now, onboarding is a big issue in most organizations these days, trying to get a good program in place. For someone starting at Clow Canada, what kind of onboarding process would you folks have?
All right. So, first of all, we could, and I guess, let's go one step even before that. Before we hire anybody now, we put them through a number of different personality tests and things to make sure that they're going to fit in with us, right? So once we've established that and we've hired somebody, if it's a unionized worker, they will, first of all, go through some training, safety, EHS training, right? And this is all your basic stuff, our corporate, type of training. And we try and ease them in with the training, not too much all at once, because it becomes very overwhelming. And then we put them to work, but when we put them to work, we establish a buddy system. So we try and find a person that would be working perhaps in that department that's more senior, that will look after the well-being of that person, and just little things like show them where the locker room is, or what time to take lunch, or all those types of things. And then on top of that, our EHS team and our supervisors will connect with that person for the first week, probably twice a day, and just to make sure everything's going fine. But the buddy system, or the work shadowing, has worked out really well. And it's, these people act as kind of mentors or big brothers to the new employees when they come into our facility.
Now, you talk about ownership. Can you give me an example or two of what you would mean when you refer to giving employees more of an ownership feeling?
Yeah, it's an ownership is basically when they care. Once you've achieved that ownership, meaning is that they come to work every day with the goal that we're going to win as a team, and that they look at obviously looking after themselves, number one, in regards to being safe and looking after the coworkers. When you're an owner, you worry about scrap rates, you worry about inefficiencies, you worry about whether or not your team is pulling together and meeting whatever the goals are for the department, that sort of thing. So that's the ownership, as opposed to somebody who just comes to work for the sake of moving a widget from point A to point B.
Now, what are some of the challenges you faced along the way?
People, getting people to change and think differently, and I think and most companies feel that the safety culture is really dependent on the company, and it's all company, meaning, the company sets policies, the company sets rules, and that, it's the company that's responsible for the safety of the employees. For us, we've changed that idea to no, your safety really depends on you, not the company. So the people need to take care of themselves. The company's responsibility is to the employee, not for the employee. And what I mean by that is to the employees, that we provide them all the tools they need and to ensure and training to ensure that they're safe. But from an ownership perspective, then the employees ensure that they take care of themselves. So the biggest challenge, was to get the people to think differently, that they were responsible for themselves as opposed to the company was.
So where did you come up with the idea of ownership?
Well, it's a purposely, so, we're, when I mentioned earlier, we have 600 employees in Canada. We have over 6,000 all over the world, most of them being in North America. So this was a corporate-driven initiative from our team in Birmingham, Alabama. So this was, again, we took a holistic approach when we looked at, injury rates and everything, and how we can take our culture to the next step. So we hired a consultant, an outside firm, to help us with the training, and so that's how all that happened.
Now, how's this working at your other plants in Canada?
So the one of the bigger plants we have in Quebec, they're a little slower getting into this from a formal perspective, only because of the training materials were all done in English. So we're going through the translations. However, we have approached kind of informally the same idea, and we've seen huge success. Record, it's just that our relationship with the union is much better. Absenteeism's down. We were able to negotiate a contract in about a week, which typically would happen, take over 2 months, those types of things. So, just being open, honest, treating people with respect has really helped us a lot in all of our facilities.
Sounds like it has, certainly. The future going in forward, what do you see as the biggest challenges that you would face as a business and from a point of view of health and safety?
Well, as you probably everyone knows, and it's still somewhat of an issue, but especially last year, hiring has been very difficult. Getting workers to work in some of our plants, because it's not always the easiest work, and we have foundries, so this hot work at times can be very uncomfortable. So it's really the challenge has been making sure that we don't bring in employees that are not going to be responsible for themselves and get hurt. We can't have people that are I hate to use let me put it this way. In the past, we've been able to hire workers who are used to working in commercial, industrial type jobs. And it got to the point where we're hiring people who perhaps had never worked in that kind of environment before and really weren't used to it. So that left them much more prone to injuries. So that's been certainly a challenge for us, is to making sure that we've don't hire somebody if we think that there's any potential for them to get injured. So that certainly has been a challenge for us. And the other challenge is keeping all these programs on the forefront. Is, okay, we got our culture to where we want it. All right, how do we keep that? It's the sustainability part. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us, and a challenge that we're overcoming, but it certainly has been a challenge.
Now, how are you overcoming that? What kind of things you're doing?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're doing quite a number of small initiatives to keep that at the forefront. We have we talk about our goals a lot. We have monthly calls, what we call Coach's Corner, with our leadership team, where we pick a topic and where we need to work on ourselves, whether it be humility, practicing humility, or how to have candid conversations, or those types of things. So we pick a topic every month and we go through that, and everybody has to either present or speak on it. From the union side, we continually have contests and kind of projects where we simple things like giving back to the community, when everybody will come in and talk about something, give back to the community, showing humility, showing how perhaps they've helped somebody out with a safety issue, environmental issue, that type of thing. So it's always about keeping this stuff at the forefront and using the term we use is the McWane way. The program that we've adopted is called the McWane way. So it's keeping that right in the forefront.
Are there any specific health and safety topics that, as an organization, that are top of your mind these days? Like, sometimes people talk about lockout or occupational hygiene issues, or something that's sort of top of their mind, or something that they're focusing on. Any specific topics in your case?
Well, Parley, as I mentioned, we've spent millions of dollars throughout our organization on, making sure that we had the right equipment, and, we engineered, as many of our risks out, all the training we've done. So now really it's just about attitude and culture. And that's the continue, because we do we have such a mature EHS program that we do very well from a baseline perspective. So now it's really about the people and having the people take care of themselves, number one, and take care of their coworkers.
For an organization that was at the conference, for example, and listened and watched as you won your award, what kind of advice would you give to any other organization on perhaps if they're starting the journey and they wonder, where should they go, and how do they get to that elusive health and safety culture?
So, Pearlie, it's so funny because I was also on a panel the day before the award in regards to purposeful, safety cultures, and spoke spoke there. And after that was over, I had some really good questions at the end, but it was over. I had a gentleman come to me who works for a very, very large and well-known organization in the province, and said he asked the same question, and he laid out how they were structured. And it was really 4 pillars within their organization. And when he talked about the management pillar and the whole management group, and that would drive, of course, the management group that would drive, policy and budgets and all that sort of thing. I asked this gentleman, do you have a seat at that table? And his response was no. And I said, well, until you have a seat. So this gentleman was the head of EHS for this organization, quite large organization. But I said, until you have a seat at that management table that's driving budgets, that's driving policy and procedures, you're not going to get to this purposeful goal, or the purposeful arrangement that we're in now. And the reason being is that, if an organization if truly cares about EHS, their top safety person will have a seat at the table in regard to strategy. So, I did another seminar with a manufacturing group. I tell everybody the same thing. Unless your senior leadership has a full buy-in, these programs will not be successful.
How do you convince senior management to do that? And I guess the way I would ask the question is I've been doing a lot of training over the last decade, and the comment I continually hear from the people that attend my courses, whether it's on supervisory safety, whatever, is that, look, it's great that we're here, but how do we convince management that they need this knowledge, that they need this understanding, that they need this kind of background information? And it's frustrating to a lot of people. So I guess their question would be just, if you don't have that seat at the table, how do you go about to get it?
Well, and that's a tough one, Pearlie, and I'm not sure I have an answer for that. But it's really, it's a shame that managers or leaders or, top echelon of leadership and organizations don't see the benefit. How to get them to see it, I'm not sure I can offer any suggestions there. But at this day and age, I would say that companies that are not embracing a purposeful culture are losing out. And I think sometimes we pay so much attention to bottom lines and our perceptions perhaps as a company. We don't realize that companies can do much better. A purposeful ownership culture will not only bring you much better EHS stats and everything, but it will also bring you less absenteeism and less turnover and those types of things. So it's trying to convince the leadership teams that, making a financial investment in this type of program and taking the time would be extremely beneficial across all aspects of the company. For us, luckily, I happen to work with an organization where we're, very forward thinking. And, if anything, it's been for us, the opposite is to, how far do we go with this as opposed to, let's not do anything at all. So probably I don't have that answer for you, but I can tell you that, I see a lot of organizations that, and I'll give you an example. We use a term that's an organization will never rise above its leader. So as a leader in the company, I was the first person I had to really look at myself. How do I get better? How do I communicate better? How do I build trust within my teams? All that sort of thing. So I had to show my team that I was changing, and I was part of the program as well. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen.
Well, look, I can certainly see, Rick, why you achieved the award. Certainly, you have so much in place in your organization. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today. Certainly, the more you can get your message out there about purposeful culture and the philosophy that you have, I would think would certainly benefit a lot of organizations in our province.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. For folks listening to our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us with suggestions. You can reach us at pearlie@ssnb.ca. Thank you very much, Rick, and keep going. Certainly, you've strived to achieve a lot, and you already have, but as we all know, it's never ending.
That's right. Well, thank you, Pearlie, and thanks for having me on today.
Okay, thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.